working capital, and at the same time, more on financing decisions. Now, the title of this webinar is about financial market, financial management, or at the same time, working capital. And at the same time, you have your what you call financing decision. All right. So financing decision. All right. So in some other book or books, no? Okay. Pag sinabi natin working capital, it is also known as your assets or current assets minus your current liabilities. Okay. It is your current assets minus your current liabilities. That's your working capital. Okay. Okay. So it is current assets minus your current liabilities. Pero class, may nabasa ako sa isang libro, no? That the working capital daw, wala lang, baka lang ibahin, no, sa board exam. Sa ibang if ever man, no, the first choice when you say about working capital, it is the current assets minus current liabilities. Pero what if, no, wala sa choices ang current assets minus current liabilities? The answer for the working capital is current assets. Again, this is the first priority and is the second priority. Okay. When you say about working capital, it is current assets minus current liabilities. But kung wala sa choices again in the CPA board, and most of you here will take the CPA board exam, pag wala, the answer is current assets. May nakita kasi akong problem na gano'n, no? Alright, why? Kasi sabi nila sa isang author, if I remember it, si Black BLOK, yung apelido niya, no? Sabi niya, working capital is a current assets, no? Because the net working capital is your current assets minus current liabilities. Wala lang. Kasi usually kasi kumukuha yan sa test bank. Alright. Baka makuha na lang yung test bank ni Black. Kasi ni Black, ito Black, yung apelido niya. Okay. Baka yun yung makuha. Sabihin nyo, wala naman tinuro sa amin, no? Anyway. Alright. Pero, tamang-tama, no? When you say about working capital associated with the short-term financing decision making. Yes, no? So, working capital, tama to. It is more on the short-term financial decision making. Why? Because you have your current assets and you have your current liabilities. All right. The reason why it is known as the working capital. Okay. Pag sinabi natin working capital, mamaya I will discuss about cash management. I will discuss about marketable securities or your short-term investment. I will discuss about your account receivable. I will also discuss about inventory. All right. So that's your main purpose. All right. That's your main goal. When you say about working capital, is that to give or to have least cost of your cash, of your marketable securities, your account receivable, and your inventory. That's the main goal of the working capital. Common sense, no? Mas maganda, mas maliit ang costing mo. Alright, yan. Ito yung sinabi din sa libro. Pag sinabing current assets daw minus current liabilities, it is known as your net working capital. Baka lang kasi ibahin nila, no? In the CPA board exam. Anyway. Alright. So, as far also when you say about working capital, there's also what you call working capital management. Sabi ko kanina, you should have least cost of your cash management, of your AR management, of your inventory management, and your marketable securities management. Okay, so meaning class, pag sinabi natin working capital management, it involves the determination of the level of quality, okay, and the maturity of each major current assets and your and your current liabilities. Again, no? Ulit-ulit lang tayo, no? When you say about working capital, it is your current assets and your current liabilities. All right. So, significance of your working capital management. Ba't kailangan natin magkaroon ng working capital management? All right. It represents the margin of safety for the short-term creditors. Diba? Consistent, no? Consistent. When you say about working capital, it is your current assets and your current liabilities. It is more on your short-term creditors. Kaya nga, it is the margin of safety for your short-term creditors. What else? When you say about working capital, it represents the extent to which your current assets are financed by your long-term sources. Yes. The amount of capital that it is being financed. Please take note. You have your current assets, pero it is being financed by a long-term sources. Ano mangyayari? You have an increase of your current assets. Kasi nga, if ever man na you have your current assets and current liabilities, may mga time na hindi nagbabago yon. Pero slight of nagbabago din, no? Okay. And number 3, when you say about working capital management, it comprises the large portion of the firm assets. Okay? So meaning class, majority daw ng kanang assets ay short term. Okay? You have your cash, marketable securities, or short-term investment. You have your inventories, diba? And you have your account receivable. And number 4, syempre, pag sinabing current assets, okay, pag sinabing short-term, very important here to consider your liquidity. Okay? So very important here to consider your liquidity. Okay? Liquidity and also your profitability. Okay. Ano nga yung liquidity? Ability by the company to pay for your current liabilities, di ba? Ano naman yung profitability? Of course, the performance of the business, right? It is very much affected, no, by your working capital management. All right. So, ano naman yung nakaka-apekto sa ating working capital? Well, the reason why I mentioned this one kasi baka lumabas, no? Kasi nga their focus talaga is more on the working capital now. So ito yung factors that will affect the working capital policy. Number 1, the nature of your operations. Ano ka ba? Are you in a merchandising? Kayo ba ay more on trading? Kayo ba ay more on manufacturing? Mamaya, no? I will discuss more about ano ba yung kino-consider natin when you say about the working capital, the nature of operations. Okay? Number 2, very important also that when you say about working capital, it is also the volume of your sales. Ilan ba ang sales mo? It will affect your sales because you have your cash. If it is cash sales, and also it will affect also your credit sales, meaning you have your account receivable. Ganun din naman sa operations natin because you have your inventories, correct? Diba? So meaning you have here your inventories, all right? This one naman, you have your sales. Of course, affected din yung AR and of course, yung ating cash. Kaya nga here, you have your cash here. And in terms of the operating or operation cycle, hopefully, iba dito ay mga 4th year na. Kaya kayo nagre-review. Ano nga yung operating cycle? Yung sa ABM pa, yung mga senior high dito, diba? Ano nga yung operation cycle? In terms of the merchandising, yeah? Simulan muna tayo sa cash. Then, bumili ng inventory, correct? Tapos yung inventory ay tinago natin. Tapos, naging siyang sales. Depende siya kung cash sales. Pero what if AR sales? Diba? You have your AR here. And of course, you have your collection. Tama? That's your operating cycle in terms of your merchandising. Okay. Wait lang kasi anak ko. Sorry, medyo na okay, how about naman in terms of our manufacturing? Okay, di ba? In terms of the manufacturing, we will convert first, no, our DM, our DL, and our factory overhead into the finished product. Tama ba? Di ba? So, if you are manufacturing tables and chairs, kailangan mo na yan maging finished product. Common sense. Paano mo ibibenta yan pag hindi pa tapos? Bungi-bungi pa. Correct? If you have your finished goods, yan yung inventory natin. Diba? So, ganoon pa rin. Inventory, then you have your sales. Correct? Ibibenta mo na siya. Then, AR pa din. Tapos you have your cash. Okay? And eventually, gagawa ka ulit ng finished goods. So, ganun class ang operating cycle, no? Ability to convert your inventory into sales, and it will end up to the collection of your sales. That's the operating cycle. Naulit lang ba? Naulit lang. Again, nature of the business, the sales pattern, the length of the manufacturing process and industry. Naulit lang ito yung huli. terms of purchases and your sales. All right, so that's the factor that will affect your current assets. Okay, when you say about working capital policy, all right, very important here are the questions to be asked. Okay, ano ba yung mga tanong sa board exam or in reality na lang, in reality, no? When you say about working capital, what is the appropriate level for your current assets? 'Di ba? Later I will discuss to you about the inventory specifically in terms of the EOQ, right? If you have your EOQ, meaning you have your economic order quantity, you will order inventory at the optimum level, 'di ba? At the minimum price. Ganun din naman daw dito, no? What would be your appropriate level for your current assets? Magkano ba dapat ang ating cash? Magkano ba ang ating tinatawag na inventory? How about naman in terms of your account receivable? Tayo ba ay nakakapag-kolekta? Baka yung ating ano is yung ating what do you call that? Baka wala tayong pera, no? Sorry. Baka puro lang tayo account receivable. Tama ba? Ang dami nga nating sales, but we have no cash. All right. What is the appropriate level of your current assets, both in total and by the specific accounts? Number 2, how should your current assets be financed? No, basically we will consider here long-term. For me, long-term dapat. Why? Because if long-term, you will increase your current assets, but your current liabilities ay walang pagbabago. If you increase your current assets, sigurado, you have you have more working capital policy. Diba? Eh kung nangutang ka din ng current assets mo and current liabilities mo, may mga time no effect yan. Alright. It would depend on your capital policy. Alright. Next one. Number 3, very important also that when you say about working capital policy, yan, what is the reasonable level of cash to keep on hand and in bank to pay your bills? How much would be your cash and how much would be your cash in bank? Diba? Yung iba nga, nasa bangko lahat. No? Dapat wala tayong pera in our company. Alright. And number 4, how much your credit should the firm extends to your customers? We will discuss later about your account receivable. Sabi ko nga kanina, yes, you have a lot of sales, but yung sales mo naman ay nasa AR and you have problem in terms of collection. Meaning, you should have good account receivable management. All right. Number 5. Very important also yan. It is more on the inventory. Kung ito ay AR, ito naman ay cash. Okay? Ito naman is your inventory. Okay? How much our inventory should the company hold? Diba? If you notice, it is more on your working capital. All right. And number 6, how much should the firm borrow in the short term? So meaning it is more on the short term current assets. So all of this, class, are all part of your working capital policy. It involves the very basic questions. All right. By the way, if you have question, kung nahihiya man, no, you can chat sa chat box. Okay. So, sabi ko kanina, when you say about working capital, no, hindi na mawawala dyan, is about tracing your cash and your net account receivable. Okay. Di ba kanina, I discussed to you the meaning of the operating cycle. Diba? Operating cycle is the length of time, again, ulit-ulit lang, in which you purchase or you produce your inventory if you're manufacturing. Ibebenta mo siya is you will sell it based on credit sales or cash sales, and eventually, you will receive your cash. Tapos, you will purchase na naman inventory, then sell it. Okay. Paulit-ulit. That's the operating cycle. Okay. Ano naman ibig sabihin ng cash conversion? Cash conversion is the operating cycle. Operating cycle ka, OPC. Operating cycle minus your payable deferral. Yan, nababasa sa board exam na nakaraan. No? Operating cycle minus your payable deferral. Ano ibig sabihin? But in the operating cycle, you have your inventory, you purchase your inventory, you sell it, then after that one is you will you collect cash from your customers. Pero you will also minus the payable deferral. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng payable deferral? It is the number of time wherein you will pay your customer. Siyempre, kung tayo ay nangutang, kailangan din natin bayaran yan. Okay? That is basically your payable deferral. Alright. Yan. Again, cash conversion. Okay. So, when you say about cash conversion, you have your inventory conversion period. Alright? You have your AR collection period, and you have your payable deferral. Sabi ko kanina, when you add this one, inventory conversion plus average collection, ang tawag dyan class ay operating cycle. Okay? If you minus the payable deferral, you have now your cash conversion cycle. Sige, one by one tayo. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng inventory conversion period? The number of days wherein you will purchase, produce your inventory until you sell them. Sa Tagalog, yan yung time na you bumili ka or you produce your inventory, then binenta mo siya until yan ay maibenta mo. So that's the inventory conversion. Meaning, if you are sana effective ka in terms of selling it, 'di ba? Dapat ma-sell mo siya within your time period, no? Within your time period. Letter boy, average collection period. Ano naman to? Average of time required to convert the firm's receivable into cash and is to collect your cash following the sale. Sa Tagalog class, effective ka ba sa pagkolekta ng cash? Ay, sorry, ng AR. Baka puro ka lang benta and nasa AR pero hindi ka naman marunong mangolekta. Meaning, baliwala yung class, ha? Lolobo at lolobo ang inyong account receivable. Yes, lalaki naman ang sales mo, pero lolobo naman yung account receivable mo, and wala kang pera, paano ka makakapag-operate sa business? Alright. And letter C, you have your payable deferral. So what do you mean here of payable deferral? The average of time between the purchase of the materials and labor of the merchandise until and the payment of cash for them. That's the payable deferral, no? Again, the average of time within you purchase your materials to your suppliers hanggat makapagbayad ka na ng cash. That's the payable deferral. Okay. Sige, one by one tayo. Again, when you say about operating cycle, you have inventory conversion, you have AR. If you add this one, ang tawag dyan ay operating cycle. If you minus the payable deferral, ang tawag doon ay cash conversion cycle. If you minus this one, is equals to cash conversion cycle. Yan, umiikot ang operating and your cash conversion cycle. Mamaya, in the multiple choice, you will answer some of the problems. Alright. Ulit lang class, ha? How do we compute naman for our operating cycle? Now, how do we compute for your operating cycle? The formula here, kanina, as discussed also, the formula here is inventory conversion period, diba? Plus your average collection period. Ganon ang formula ng ating operating cycle. Diba? That's the formula in computing for the cash operating cycle. Okay. Inventory conversion period, diba? Or ito yung formula natin. When you say about inventory conversion, inventory to be multiplied by 365 days. Ito class, depende pala to ha, sa given. In the CPA board exam, sasabihin naman yan, use 360 days. Use 365 days. Okay? Divided by your cost of sales. Plus AR times 365 days divided by kada sales. Sir, parang iba yung formula niya. Huwag kayong malito class ha. Diba? When you compute for the inventory conversion period, anong una mo nang ginagawa dati? Punta kayo sa FS analysis, di ba? Una muna, ang paggawa niyan, di ba, ay pag-compute muna ng inventory to. Compute muna tayo ng inventory turnover. Di ba? Di ba? Anong formula ng inventory turnover? If you notice, di ba? Cost of sales divided by your inventory, average inventory, di ba? Okay, after that one, complete na tayo ng inventory conversion, di ba? Ano yung formula ng inventory conversion? If you notice, 365 divided by inventory turnover. Tama? Makukuha mo. Parehas lang yan, class. Okay, ito kasi ginawa natin ay shortcut na to. It is shortcut already. May cost of sales din, may inventory din, and may 365. Same lang yan. Wag kayong malito. Ganun din naman sa ating AR, di ba? Anong una mo nang ginagawa natin sa FS analysis? Compute for the AR turnover. Ano yung formula ng AR turnover? AR divided by our sales. Tama? Okay. Sorry, baliktad. Sorry, should be sales divided by average AR. Tapos, pag ito na, ano yung formula to? 365 days divided by AR turnover. Same lang yan, class. No? Kaya wag kayong malito. No? Algebra lang yan. Algebra. Okay. Baka sabihin nyo, same lang naman. Okay. Ito na lang yung ano nyo, tandaan nyo na lang. No? Para isahan na lang. Okay. Pero dapat alam nyo din kung paano mag-compute ng inventory turnover. Kasi baka tanongin sa board, how much would be your inventory turnover? How much would be your AR turnover? Baka lang ha, baka lang. Okay. So, in terms naman of our payable deferral, for example, no? So this is your example. Inventory terms 65 divided by cost of sales. Okay. For example, first 116 would be the inventories to be multiplied by 365 days divided by 650 kasi ito yung cost of sales mo. Again, formula lang ha, replace lang yan, no? 150 times 65 divided by 1 million. Okay. Ano ibig sabihin nito, class? 65.14 days ka daw to convert your inventory into sales. Okay ba to, class? Okay, sa board exam depende yan. Depende yan sa inyong term. Depende yan sa inyong background, no? Ilang days ba talaga mako-convert yung ating inventory to sales. So, kung San Miguel Beer ka, sa amin dati 30 days lang kami. Kung 65.14 days yan, ay pangit na yan, no? Meaning, wala nang manginginom. Diba? Minsan nga, 15 days lang eh. Malakas ang beer. Okay. Yan. So, meaning, depende yan. Pero kung ikaw ay manufacturing ng car, ng mga high value, 65.14 ay maganda na yan. No? Again, it would depends on the company. Okay. How about this one? 54.75 days. Anong ibig sabihin yan, class? Meaning, 54.75 days ka daw, makakapag-collecta ka. Alright, makakapag-collecta ka sa inyong customer. Maganda ba yan? Again, depende na naman yan sa company mo. So, overall, class, magkano ba ang ating operating cycle? Almost 120 days. January, February, 3, 6, 9, 12. So, pwedeng siya, 4 months. Okay? 4 months ka, your operating cycle. No? Maganda ba yan? Again, depende pa rin sa company nyo. Kung San Miguel yan, pangat yan. Okay, mga groceries, pangat yan. Okay? Alright, next one naman. So, it will take the Harris Lorenzo Company almost 120 days from the time they receive raw materials to produce, market, and collect them or collect cash for their finished product. Alright. Next one, you have also here cash conversion cycle. So, again, ulit lang ako, class, ha? Pag sinabi yung cash conversion cycle, operating cycle minus your payable deferral. Ito yung bago, class. How do we compute for payable deferral? Accounts payable times 65 days divided by our cost of sales. Okay, so same as kanina. What if ganyan yung ating problem? So, just compute for the account or for the payable deferral. So 119.89 minus 52.5 days, meaning, class, magkano lahat yung ating cash conversion? 52.51 days. Okay. Because this is your inventory conversion, this is your payable average relation period minus this payable deferral, and the answer here is 52.51 days. By the way, makinig kayo kasi lumalabas sa board exam. Ang iba familiar sa cash sa operating cycle. Yung iba hindi familiar sa cash conversion. At hindi rin alam kung paano pag-compute ng payable deferral. Okay? So, so please take note of this formula, class. All right. So advantages of the adequate working capital. Of course, if you have more working capital, madami kang pera, AR may be extended, inventories may be replenished, current expenses are paid promptly, management are employees moral enhanced. Siyempre, dami ng pera, dami ng inventories, dami ng cash. Profitable opportunities can be taken advantage of. All right. Kaya lang din naman lahat ay advantages, no? You have also disadvantages. Of course, if you have an inadequate working capital, o common sense, wala kang pera, wala kang pambayad, risk of business failure, or the company may not be able to pursue its objectives because of lack of funds. Diba? Okay, ito naman, excessive naman to. No? Of course, kung madami kang pera, yung iba ay magiging complacent. Tama? Ay, kaya naman yan. Kahit di na tayo magtrabaho, uh, uh, kayang-kaya natin yan mag-earn. No? So, and efficient ka and complacent. Management may speculate. O, di ba? Bibili tayo ng madami. We will buy more investment. Di ba? Unnecessary expenses and extravagance, yun nga, may result. And resources are not optimally be employed. Yeah. Okay. Sige, ayan. So, ito ko lang. Ito, wag na to. So, ito hindi naman to part ng ating, hindi naman siya part ng ating board exam. Alright. Next one. Okay, so, ano oras na ba? Sorry, baka 30 minutes lang. Next one naman, we will go one by one. So, we will go one by one. Next one is all about your cash. Alright, managing or management of your current assets. So, hopefully 1 hour lang tayo sa discussion, then 1 hour for the problem solving. Okay. In terms of the management of your current assets, ito na tayo Again, these are the composition of your working capital. Ano nga yung class? You have your cash, you have your marketable securities, you have your account receivable, and you have your inventory. The objectives or the objective, current assets to of the current assets, if you are a finance manager, kasi part siya ng ating financial management, is to carefully allocate resources among your current assets of your cash, marketable securities, account receivable, and your inventory. That's your goal, class, right? That's your goal. Diba? Cash, marketable securities, account receivable, your inventory. Okay. Bakit, class? Ano nga yung ating pinaka-goal natin? As discussed also a while ago, our goal here is that it should be at least cost. No? Ayan. Sana tandaan ba ito, class? Ito yung ating discussion kanina. Diba? And the working capital, dapat mas maliit na cost, mas okay. Alright. In managing your current assets, your primary concern, again, is the liquidity. Safety and liquidity, and the secondary, of course, is to maximize your profit. Okay. But nga least cost, siyempre, pupunta ka sa, mga lockbox system, yung tinatawag na mga compensating balance, yung mga float, diba? Dapat maibigay ka agad sa atin yun, no? Para at least we have least cost. In terms of the AR management, bakit least cost? Dapat factoring the scores, diba? Dapat makolekta natin yun kaagad. Inventory, ganun din. No? Especially in terms of purchasing, okay, of your inventory. All right. Current assets management, no, is the handling of your current assets of the company. And any assets that the company or business that is equivalent to cash or can be liquidated into cash, and the period of year is considered as your current assets. Yes. Okay? Alam niyo yan, class, discuss na sa inyo, no? More on your current assets. So what would be your two major decisions pag sinabi nating management liquidity? Okay? The total amount of liquidity necessary to avoid the risk of insolvency. All right? Or the amount of cash versus your marketable securities. So to have the liquidity, yun nga, sabi ko nga sa inyo, dapat as much as possible, you have enough cash to pay your obligations. That's the main goal of your working capital. Kaya nga ulit-ulit yung word na liquidity. 'Di ba? Napansin niyo ba? Puro liquidity, liquidity, and liquidity.